Welcome to the webinar series, A Multidimensional Approach to Building Your Personal Brand. Joining me is a very special guest, Kayla Anderson from WKRN. Kayla, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Coach. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I love doing this kind of stuff.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we're going to love to hear your story, and we're going to hear about that here in a second. But tell me a little bit more about yourself, and tell the audience a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I am originally from Spokane, Washington, so a long way away. If you guys don't know where that is, if you're a sports fan, think of Gonzaga. That's the great basketball team over there on the West Coast. Also Seattle, it's like the opposite side of the state. So that is where I am from. I went to Washington State University. Mike Leach, who is now at Mississippi State, was our head coach for the past few years there. So that was kind of my mission when I graduated high school. I am a die-hard sports fan. I played softball growing up. I also danced competitively since I was like a little itty bitty girl. So competition kind of runs through my veins. And when I was in high school, I was trying to put together, like, what did I really see myself doing in the future? And as of, I think a lot of you guys know, is you kind of learn that as you get older. And I thought, okay, well, why don't I put my love for entertaining with my love for sports, because I wasn't going to be some D1 athlete, and combine it. So that's where I decided, I'm going to do sports broadcasting. And so that took me to Washington State University, where they have a great program, Edward R. Murrow program. And I worked really hard there doing about everything I could to get my foot in the door just in terms of athletics. So I worked with the athletic department. I also worked on the Cable 8 local news there so that I could get more and more reps. And then I learned everything behind the scenes. So shooting with your own camera, producing shows, directing shows, anything I could do to say, okay, when I graduate, I have this list of things that I've done, and I'm ready to improve them at the next level. So that's how I began my love for sports broadcasting, was just simply kind of combining two things that I thought would go well together with my personality and turning it into what is now a career.
Great. So what brought you down to Nashville ultimately?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a journey. Look, I mean, some of us, we look back at our lives like years down the road and we think, oh man, this has been a pretty easy journey. I've made a couple stops here and there. In the broadcasting business, it's never usually an easy journey. I think sometimes it's easy to see like people who have made it and they're still in their like late 20s and they're on ESPN or so on and so forth. But that's not like that for most of us out there. It's a really grinding business, meaning that you have to grind to get your foot in the door and you have to work even harder to work your way up the ladder. And it is really like what I compare to a minor league baseball system. You're starting from rookie ball and you're trying to climb your way all of the way up to the majors. And that's how my journey's been. I mean, I started off in Little Bend, Oregon, and I worked my way into a full-time job after an internship. And then I moved to Montgomery, Alabama for my first full-time sports job. I learned a new culture, learned how to do a lot of things. Yeah, on my own. I shot with my own camera, a big old camera. And then from there went back to my hometown of Spokane, Washington. And sometimes you're thinking, man, I'm on the fast track. I'm right where I want to be. And then, you get derailed. And I was laid off in 2008 and just kind of thought, my life was over in terms of, being pushed all the way back and not having a job for 5 months. And I finally took a job in a little market in Missoula, Montana, and I made the most of it. I became the sports director there. I built a brand there. I bettered myself. And from there, I went to Arizona, Columbus, Ohio, for 3 years. And then I was laid off in Columbus, and another bump in the road where a lot of us are going to experience this along our paths in whatever you choose to do. And here was this job that I had actually tried to come here about 5 times previous. I know the sports director very well here. I have for years. I met him along the way at one of those small markets when you're covering a tournament. Gave him my card and tried to get me here 5 times, never worked. And then this time there was an opening. I had gotten laid off. and
There
boom,
you are.
I land in Nashville, and it was something that I've always kind of wanted to do, and here I am.
Absolutely, and you bring up a great point where there's a lot of great points within that that we can dive into. Let's talk about networking because you meet somebody at a tournament.
Yeah,
You and I are sitting like this because we met at the NFL draft,
yeah,
and I never would have known to reach out to you had that not happened. So, what are some things that you could tell high school graduates or
yeah.
anybody that's going through the college journey and trying to find what their strengths are and what they're good at? What would you tell them some good strategy about networking and
Yeah.
versus the old school approach versus the social media approach?
Yeah, it's a whole new world with social media, right? I mean,
Mhm.
back when I graduated, I know we just didn't have as much of it. We had, the Facebook that had just kind of come out, but other than that, we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have Instagram, and I think those things have really helped with the connection part of things. But here's the thing, what I did, since I didn't have any of that, I think the biggest thing for me was to make connections wherever I landed. So you were talking about the tournament I was at. I was at the NCAA tournament covering Montana basketball.
The
Vanderbilt was playing.
Grizz.
Yeah, the Grizz. I loved covering the Grizz, by the way. They were in the bracket the same as Vanderbilt, and that's where my sports director Corey Curtis was. He was covering Vanderbilt, and we happened to meet, and they helped me with some stuff since I was on my own doing everything one man band. And again, just for us, it was like giving that card and keeping it for all those years and then pulling it out when I was like, you know what, I'm ready for the next level, and giving them a call and saying, hey, what do you got? I think the biggest thing, especially for the generation now that is graduating, is just to be as connected as you can in whatever thing that you're going into whatever avenue you're going to. For me, broadcasting is what I do. So wherever I am, wherever I land, it's always introducing myself. And the biggest thing I think that has helped me along my path is finding a connection with those people. You can't just always go up to someone and say, hey, I'm so and so, and have a connection. You've got to kind of find that connection.
Mhm.
And the more and more you grow in the business, the more connections you have, and it's really easy to find them once you have kind of built them in different parts of the country, if you move, or if not, just the region that you're in. So I think that has helped out a lot, because I know that it sounds funny, but sometimes name dropping and knowing a little bit about somebody who knows that person is
Mhm.
really helpful, and they automatically look at you and are like, oh, okay, I kind of feel a connection with you. So I think that is huge, and this generation can do it so much more often too, just with Twitter and Instagram and those outlets.
What social media platform would you say is king right now?
For sports, I
Mhm.
would definitely go with Twitter. Twitter is, I think, king for sports because news drops on a dime.
Mhm.
And there's news that comes out, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. You're thinking, oh, well, what are you covering? Like, there's no sports to cover. You'd be wrong. I mean, what we've been covering since the sports world has essentially shut down and now is starting to reopen is just updates every day, or it's getting those coaches and athletes on a Zoom call, on a Skype call, and saying, what are you doing right now? What's the mentality of getting through this time? What workouts are you organizing virtually? So there's been a lot to cover. And so I think Twitter, it's been nice because Twitter, you just tweet that stuff out, people get it instantly, people can retweet it, and then it grows and grows. The other day I had I don't know if any of your kids or you follow the whole Gus Duggerton at the Tennessee Vols named him as their virtual head coach.
Yeah.
And people got a kick out of that. People
Yeah.
loved it. And I did a story on it, and it blew up.
Yeah. You
And,
never know.
you just never know. And that's where you get those follows, and sometimes you get those connections. So Twitter's, I think, the number one for sports, but I do like Instagram in terms of just people love pictures. People love kind of the live video. So I think Instagram's a real good one right now for people in maybe some different capacities.
Right. And sometimes, I feel like when I'm picking through Instagram, I feel like that's kind of your own short video podcast platform.
Yeah.
And I think someone starting out could use those different avenues, to be resourceful as far as getting their content out there. Like somebody that doesn't have any experience
Yeah.
now with the technology, I would think you could gain that experience by, because it's so much easier to start a podcast, or it's so much easier to get out
Yep.
there. Like this device right here is better than half the cameras I have in my classroom.
I
And
know.
get out there and shoot with it. So, demo reels are something that should be a little bit easier to make. So
Yeah.
with that all in mind, how would you say that demo reels are looked at now?
Yeah, they're always evolving. I'll first and foremost say that. I can remember my first demo reel was on like a VHS, and that was a long time ago. Now they're clearly digital. I mean, they moved from DVD and now it's all digital. And I was looking at my page because I have an agent in this business, and they kind of put together, some people just put together a reel for you. Some have a whole page like my agent does and kind of separates out your work. But I always kind of put together my own thing and then send it, and they can tweak it. So I think the biggest thing with a demo reel that I always try to harp is that it doesn't need to be long. First of all, it doesn't need to be this dragged out like 10-minute thing of everything you've done. It's hard to do this, but you have to get the best work possible that you feel like this is going to hammer it home with whoever I'm sending it to. And you've got to pretty much put that together in a quick moving way. And I say about 5 minutes is the max that I would do. So I tell people to start with something that gets that viewer's attention from the get-go, because most of these employers that are looking at you, they're going to look at the first 8 seconds of that video. And that is no joke. That is no lie. That is a real thing. And so you want to catch their attention, whether that be, just how you're carrying yourself, your voice, your delivery. You need to make sure that you look professional. You have everything together. So those first 2 clips are really, really important. And then you kind of just want to have it move, and you don't need to do a full story. You just need to do like the first 5 or 6 seconds of a clip, and you just run through it, and make it kind of fast moving and show you in different places. So maybe a stand up at the arena, you're in the studio for this show, you're having a sit down one-on-one with a coach, in another shot you're interviewing a player. So get in everything you want to get in those first good chunk of seconds, so that you can capture.
Seconds, I would say.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, I think that's the best advice I could give. And then always at the end, I think add a story, add some sort of a story that you've put together. And that can be a little bit longer. Obviously, that can be a minute 30 or 2 minutes. But that's the way I like to put together a reel, a demo reel, because people don't have time to look at much in the world that we live in, especially. So that's the way I would go with it.
All right. So let's go back to the beginning of the journey, and the grind part of it. In the television news industry, you're probably moving to Podunk, Oklahoma, and then from there you're going to slightly less Podunk, Iowa, and eventually you can work your way up to the mid markets, and then the upper markets, and all the way up, to the big leagues. You go from your example, rookie ball, to AA to AAA, and eventually, hopefully, to the majors. So when you're evaluating those rookie ball level places, what are some things you look for, not only within the station that you're looking at in a broadcast news sense, but like the city, and just kind of evaluating the whole situation, especially if you have more than one choice?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy these days. And there's so many more people who want to be in this business, especially females, and which is great. It's just, there's that much more competition out there. So when you are looking at places and you have maybe a couple options coming out of college, I think the biggest thing is to go somewhere that you feel like you're going to get the most out of that position. So, when I got laid off, I was saying in Spokane, while it was the end of the world at that time, when I went to the University of Montana to cover, the teams there, I went into a great situation. I mean, you had Montana football that was thriving at the time, Montana basketball that was thriving at the time. The high school scene was really big there. And I think it's like you have to put yourself in that market and say, how can I get the most out of my time here with what there is to cover? And even if it is just mostly high school sports, that's not a bad thing, because some high school sports, they're a big deal in that particular area. And I just remember I kind of like was the brand for high school sports for my station. And I had all the parents that watched me every single Friday night, and all the athletes that tuned into my station on Friday night. And you build relationships with those parents, those athletes, and a lot of them go on to play college, and some of them professional. I still keep in touch with a lot of the guys that I covered, or gals that I covered back in the day. But I think you just have to see yourself and kind of put yourself in that area, do all your research, and say, hey, what could I do to make the most out of my time here?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's one thing you just gotta, and so many people get wrapped up in, well, I don't want to live in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
I don't want to move to Tulsa,
Yep.
And I think they just got to kind of put that aside and say, hey, this is, I just got to make my time here, put the best foot forward, and let's see what happens. So you get the opportunities, right? Let's say you kill it you kill it in rookie ball, you kill it in single A, you kill it in double A. Now you're on the precipice of making it into, at least on the doorstep of the major, if not jumping from double A to the majors. And we use that baseball example because it's perfect.
I know.
So what are some things, like resume wise, that could get you to stand out, interview wise?
Yeah.
What are some common questions that you can have solid answers to, and what can you expect with interviews, and try to give yourself that opportunity?
So, and the main thing nowadays with this profession especially is, we talked about just the demo reel. I think more so than the resume, you have to have your resume just for them to see your experience, obviously, but your demo reel is what is going to sell you and get your foot in the door for an actual interview, or via Skype for an interview. I know a lot of people are doing that right now with the COVID-19 pandemic going on. So, a resume, keep it simple, keep your mission statement just to the point, just kind of sell you in that first paragraph that you put up there. And then always, I think the biggest thing people forget about is they want to make it like 3 pages. Like, make your resume 1 page. And I know it's sometimes hard to get it all on there, but just pick the things that matter the most. I mean, my jobs, I've been a lot of stops, but I put like my past 4, places that I've been, and I keep it at that. And I put the stuff that matters the most under the bullet points of what I've covered. The most important stuff, right? The stuff that looks the best.
The eye-catching stuff.
Exactly. So that's what I would say for the resume. Keep it simple. For the interviews, once you kind of get those interviews, I think the biggest thing, and this is something that I've learned over time, is you just kind of have to remember, as much as you're trying to impress that person, you have to stay true to yourself. You have to be yourself, because when it's all said and done, they are interviewing you for a reason. They saw something on your reel that stood out to them. And, when you're doing your everyday broadcast, I would hope that you're yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I sure as heck am, for the most part. But you just need to be yourself. I think that, it's easy to get nervous, and you have to tell yourself, you know what, look at it as like, I am talking to a friend of mine, and we're having a good intellectual conversation. And I would do it that way. Show your personality, but know how to kind of not go overboard. But just don't forget about the fact that you got this job because of what they saw. They saw something, which is you being you. So I think that's the biggest thing. And always do your research for these interviews, wherever that might be, whether it be a network or just a local station. You just need to know everything you can about that place, that city, what they cover, just the background of the actual company. I think that that's really important. And then the one other thing that I would say for people now, especially days, is the digital side of stuff. Even if it doesn't say that in the job description, digital is big. It's growing. We've added it at our station. I'm actually doing I'm not only doing the news side of things with sports, but I'm doing a lot of digital, and they love it. And they want to keep growing it. So I guarantee you, whatever job you're getting, even if it doesn't say digital in the title, I would say, hey, I know how to do digital. I'm okay with doing digital. I'm all about adding that if we need to. So that's a selling point as well.
Good deal. So, your journey has been a crazy one, so to speak, and that's kind of the norm. And
Yeah.
so before we wrap up, I got to say that I like your setup that you got behind you.
Thank you.
I like I noticed one of the things I noticed was the Chipper Jones book.
Yes.
The Emmy back there behind you, and Nashville Soccer Club stuff. So it looks like you're assimilating to the South really well. So
yeah,
I've got to ask, are you going to be a secondary Mississippi State fan?
Man, this is hard. This is really hard. I've spent a lot of time in the South, believe it or not, because my first job full-time in sports, I said, was in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And I covered Alabama and Auburn. And I will say, I was there when Tommy Tuberville was there. And I love Coach Tubbs. And he was one of my favorite coaches. Mm-hmm. He was one of those coaches that learned your name, that knew who you were. And so and I was there when Saban first arrived, by the way.
Oh, okay. So they probably made you choose. So which one did you choose?
Well, I chose Auburn.
You can't be – yeah,
no.
I was going to say, you can't be neutral, or you have to be one.
Right. Right. I chose Auburn probably because it was more like my college that I went to, Washington State, kind of more the ag university college. But here's the thing. I love what Mike Leach did for Washington State. Believe it or not, they were on the map when I was back in school, but he put them back on the map. I mean, College Game Day went there. If you guys saw it, it was unbelievable. It's one of my favorite moments of all time in terms of like just seeing something live like that. Mm-hmm. So we thank Mike Leach. And so I will definitely root for him at Mississippi State. But I'm telling you, the South is a whole nother beast. And Mike Leach didn't win every single game up there, and he did not win an Apple Cup in 7 tries. So that's our like rivalry with Washington. So I'm just saying the leash in the South is a little shorter.
Exactly.
So, but I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, especially Kiffin right up.
Right
up the way at Ole Miss. So that'll be interesting. So, Kayla, I thank you for joining us. Lots of great advice. Do you have anything else you want to add before we go?
Yeah, I just think, the biggest thing I would really say to those who are going to get into this business or just decide to go into something else, I think the biggest thing is so many times we can feel like we're not getting to the level where we want to be. We're always kind of on a time clock, and I'm guilty of that. I think I always envisioned myself at a network at this level or at this part of my life. And while I'm not there yet, I think my message is you just don't give up. Everybody is thrown a different card in life, and you have to work the best way possible with it and cash it in when your time is ready. That's when your time is. And so you just can't really plan it. You just have to keep your mindset. And if your passion is to do this and you want to get to a level, you keep going, and there's nobody who can stop you. So that's my mission. And I just encourage everybody out there to do the same.
Where can we find you, Kayla?
Yeah, so you can, I'm all over on social media. You can find me on Twitter at Kayla Anderson TV, also on Instagram at Kayla Anderson TV, Facebook, which is always great for everything Nashville and the surrounding area, is WKRN Kayla Anderson. And then I have a website you can go to if you're interested in kind of seeing how to build a website. If you are looking to do that in the future, mine is www.KaylaAndersonTV.com, and I built that from scratch, so you guys can check it out if you're interested in doing something like that in the future.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
And, we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you.